Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of York. Before we enter into our worship time together, there is an announcement that I want to share about our community here at UUCY. Are you ready for summer camp? Last year was the inaugural year of the Harrisburg Unitarian Church's summer camp program. This year, due to renovations at their church, the Unitarian Universalist congregation of York will be opening its grounds for a single summer day camp retreat to be held right here in partnership with the Harrisburg Unitarian Church, and you are all invited. Just as last year's camp at the Harrisburg Unitarian Church, we will have a bundle of exciting and fun activities for kids, including campfire s'mores, music, crafts, and drag performer story time. New this year, we are inviting parents, guardians to join us for a family day with activities geared towards the entire family, as well as one session where adults can get away for a moment and learn about how to take care of your own mental health as a parent. Sounds good to me. Many UUs are struggling at the moment to feel a sense of safety and community with current political events in America. This camp day is an opportunity to come together, build the community we are seeking, and foster that sense of safety by learning about and accepting the diversity within our UU congregations and in the larger local community. Whether your family identifies as UU or you are a member of the wider community, we invite you to gather for fun and frolic and maybe some puppies on June 28th from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. To sign up as a family or a volunteer, please scan the QR code on the camp flyer that is in the lobby. If you have questions or need more information, please reach out to Beth Dombach. Now that we've addressed the business, let's begin to turn our attention to worship. I am Ellen Diona. My pronouns are her and she, and I'll be helping to lead our service this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, we are glad your faith journey brought you here today. The mission of this congregation is to nurture a loving community, inspire lifelong spiritual and personal growth, and act for a better world. We welcome all of you joining us in person or online. If you are joining us for the first time, we invite you to visit our welcome desk to fill out a visitor card or send an email to welcome@uucy.org so that we might get to know you. We invite you to bring your whole self into this sanctuary space with us. If you are here in the sanctuary with us, please remember to set your devices to worship mode or silent or vibrate. If it would be helpful for you to sketch or color, enjoy another centering activity during worship, you're invited to check out our Spirit work card in the back of the sanctuary. Let us now mark this time made sacred by our presence by taking a collective breath. Again, welcome to UUCY. Let the sound of the bell lead you into a worship.
Morning, York. Morning. I'm Anthony, he, him, his. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Rebecca. Good to be up here. Make the trek from down, what do you all call non-York? the lower, whatever, mid-Atlantic. I used to rehearse up here in a band many moons ago, in a rock band. Had a forest green Ford Explorer 92 that I totaled in the middle of winter, coming up 83 on some black ice. So this is a beautiful morning to make this drive. It's healing my trauma. Many thanks to Reverend Kristen also for inviting me to share this time with you. Memorial Day is one of those days on the calendar that is sacred to me. I'm working on 16 years time and service in the military, among many other things, musician, parish minister, blah, blah, blah. I've been in the military for, my first 10 were Army as band. My first 5 were enlisted as a bass player, second 5 as a chaplain, finishing up 5.5 years in the Air Force as a chaplain. I will start in the Navy Reserve in July as a chaplain, just to confuse everybody, get all the branches in. For most of us service members and vets, it's a heavy-hearted day, so we don't necessarily say Happy Memorial Day. It's a day to remember, whereas Veterans Day is a day to remember everybody who served, Memorial Day is a day specifically to remember all those who were fallen, all those who gave their lives in duty, all those killed in action, missing in action, also prisoners of war is what we remember around this time. So it's a time for me and most of us to remember that everything that we do in military stuff is potentially deadly, not necessarily when we're overseas, but just when we're training, just when we are doing routine stuff. I mean, I was part of the people helping to make sense of the crash at Bowling Air Force Base in January, which was not, we weren't at war, we weren't doing it. It was a routine thing. It was a freak accident and cost 93 lives or something like that, and 4 of those lives are service members. And it's those kinds of things that help us remember every time we do any kind of training or anything that is potentially deadly in the service to our country. So, it's merry in that we will probably grill tomorrow and open up some libations and tell some tall tales, but we also want to remember what the reason for this particular moment is. Does that make sense? Very much in that spirit. We'll get into, for the sermon, I'll give you some perspective of what it's like to be a military chaplain, some of the lights and the shadows of that. Also what it's like to be a UU military chaplain and how that looks in the experience, especially now, under this particular, in the current climate. So very much in the spirit of what we do, certainly as chaplains, but everyone who serves. Our chalice lighting is going to be from the Christian side of the house, from the New Testament, John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. We're going to use as our hymn for the morning. It's the Navy hymn, but it's just a hymn. It's also a Protestant hymn. It's also in the movie Titanic, if you're watching that, shortly before it starts going down, but I don't want to put you in that frame of mind. It's called Eternal Father Strong to Save. I have amended the lyrics ever so slightly to be a little bit more Unitarian and Universalist, but still very much in the vein of that. I think Robert's going to song lead, and I'll also try to help out just in case you're lost. By the time we get to the second or third verse, I think we'll all pretty much know where we are because it just keeps repeating. Does that make sense? I'm going to invite you to rise as you are able in mind, body, or spirit if you have served in the United States Army. Please rise if you have served in the United States Navy, in the U.S. Marine Corps, United States Air Force, Space Force, National Guard, any civil servants, Public Health Service, NOAA, any DOD contractors, anybody friends with anybody served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, please rise. Married to, currently, formerly, anybody got a pet or a plant ever served, please rise. Join us in singing our hymn for the morning, Eternal Father Strong to Save.
Children to come forward if they would like, and any adults who would like to join the children in a time for all ages. Hi. So this is a story by Erica Heward and Paul Sawyer, and it's called Honoring Fallen Soldiers. And I know in my family there have been people who have fought in wars and have died in the duty of fighting for our country and for the laws and the Constitution and the people they love here. And you may know somebody like that too. So this is, I have to start with a question. Think of where you feel safe and at peace. So think of a place maybe or a time when you feel safe and at peace. And is there a signal or something that helps you remember to move into a space of peace or safety? Well, for the people in the U.S. military, there's a special signal that says you're okay and you're at peace. It's a melody called taps, and it's only 24 notes long. And it was composed by a general in the Civil War and his bugler. Now, when I learned I was going to read this story, I thought, there are going to be kids who go, what's a bugler? A bugler is a person who plays a bugle, which may not help you. So I demanded that I have a visual aid. And this is what the person plays. It's called a bugle. And it sort of looks like a trumpet, but it doesn't have the valves that a trumpet player can play with. So the person who plays this blows in here, and the only way they make notes and can make vibration is with their tongues and their lips. They don't have the valves that a trumpet player has, so it's a big skill to be able to blow a bugle beautifully. So it's hard to remember now in this time how important bugle calls were in the military once upon a time. In the days before radio, and that means a long time before television, bugle calls were the only way military units could communicate to groups over a large area. Have some of you been to Gettysburg? Have you been to where the battlefield was in Gettysburg? You know how big that was, how much space there was? So they had to have a way to send messages, and the bugler was the person who sent the messages. In the 1860s, the end of the day was important. If there was time and peace enough to play taps, that was a signal that the camp was relatively safe. It meant that you were not under attack. It meant that there were no enemy soldiers to worry about. To a camp of soldiers, the notes of taps meant that unless you were on duty, you could close your eyes and fall asleep. And you could be in peace doing that. They say that the first time taps was played at a service for fallen soldiers also took place during the Civil War, and Gettysburg was a battle in the Civil War. In those days, the traditional military salute was, as it still is, the firing of a 3-round volley of rifles. But this one time, they say, was after a long battle. And when finally a ceasefire had been called and both sides had stopped to bury their dead, they knew that they couldn't use that firing of the rifles. So in one camp, as the work ended and the memorial service began to take shape, the soldiers didn't fire the artillery salute because people might think they were returning to fight, and not that it was part of a sacred memorial. So someone had the idea of sounding the bugle, and that sound would never be taken as an aggressive act of war. So taps, the music that was played, those 24 notes, came to mean the same thing. It meant the safety and quiet at the end of the day, a time to rest, to turn the lights out, to let their eyes close, and at best they could, to be at peace. It's like a powerful prayer. So we're going to listen to a playing of taps from the back on a Native American flute, not a bugle. So this weekend, many people in the United States are remembering and honoring all those who have died while serving in our military. So you might hear taps again. If you do, maybe you can stop what you're doing and think of the soldiers who might have been afraid, and then let taps remind you that they now are at peace. We try to make our congregation a place where people can feel safe and at peace. We work outside of these walls to create a community like that too, a world where everyone feels at peace in their neighborhoods and towns. So you might tomorrow maybe see some television and see some of the pageant and ceremony that celebrates the lives of people who fought and who died to keep us safe at home and to keep our country shining with its laws and its meaning. So we'll sing you out, and you can go to the activities and classes that your children have. All right.
I'm going to invite you to turn to 583 in the gray hymnal, unless it's up on the... We don't have a slide for it, do we? No, 583. It says 538 in your bulletin, but disregard that. 583. 583 should be the Young Dead Soldiers. This is a piece written by an American poet, Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, Archibald MacLeish, who served in World War I, first in the ambulance corps in France, and then as an Army field artillery officer. It's written actually for his brother, Kenneth, who was a naval aviator who died in a mid-flight crash in World War I. So he was a soldier, but this was in his heart, speaking to his brother, the sailor, the Young Dead Soldiers. I will read the words that are in standard print. We'll read together the things that are in italics. Does that make sense? The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard. They have a silence that speaks for them at night, and when the clock counts. They say, we were young, we could have died, remember us. They say, we have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done. They say, we have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave. They say, our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and you both, or for nothing, you cannot say. It is you who must say this. They say, we leave you our deaths, give them their meaning. We were young, they say, we can die, remember us.
So we will light one more candle for all of those matters of the heart that may be too tender, for those of you to speak now, and we hold you in community with those thoughts. And so we have a candle for community and those words that are too tender to speak.
So Lieutenant John Gillespie McGee was born here, not far from here in D.C. His father was one of the chaplains for President Truman, and he grew up a couple of different places on the East Coast. Wrote a lot of poetry when he was a kid, but most of it was about the headmaster's daughter, and she didn't really like him, and it was an unrequited love situation. But he was writing, right? He was working on his craft. He got accepted to Yale, but decided instead to serve in World War II, as all of that was coming down, to fly for the Royal Air Canadian Air Force. So he was learning how to fly. I can't remember what the name of the plane is, but had the experience once of getting up to 30,000 feet and taking in the view. Came down, wrote a poem about it that he sent to his father. A couple of weeks later, he got into a midair collision and died in England. So his father, who was a priest at, can't remember what the name of the church is, but passed it on to his congregation. They passed it on to family members and loved ones, and lots of people. Became one of the most famous, probably, poems spoken at the funerals, certainly of astronauts, aviators, anybody who flies. I would tell you probably he wouldn't have said this at the time, but I think one of his main purposes in life was to be a poet, to be a pilot just long enough to catch this view, take this snapshot, and manifest it into this piece of art. So in that Memorial Day spirit, this is a piece from Lieutenant John Gillespie McGee. It's called High Flight. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung, high in the sunlit silence, hovering there. I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air, up, the long, delirious, burning blue. I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or ever eagle flew, and while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
Thank you for that. We now invite you into generosity as we collect our weekly offering. Each week, we commit to share our offering with a community organization that upholds our values. Our Share the Plate partner for May is the Period Product Collection. Low-income individuals within our community who already experience housing and food insecurity also do not have the resources to obtain menstrual hygiene products. It is an unseen public health issue that creates a lot of shame and stigma. It impacts a person's ability to show up at work or at school. To address this health challenge for the past 2 years, UUCY, in partnership with St. Paul's Lutheran Church, have raised funds to supply menstrual products for the St. Paul's Food Pantry. This social justice initiative has been well received and appreciated by individuals attending the food pantry. The cost of products has risen steadily over the past year and is expected to increase significantly in this coming year. The shape of justice can be as simple as a tampon. Let us continue to support this worthy endeavor. The ushers will now collect the offering. If this is your first time visiting with us, please feel free to let the basket pass you by. Your presence is a gift.
Thank you, Rebecca. Everybody all right so far? As a child, my heart was quite fond of David Letterman's top 10 list. So in that spirit, I will offer you the top 10 things you never knew about military chaplains and the proud few who are UU. Number 1, first things first. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Anybody know what this is? First Amendment, first line of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, affectionately known as the Establishment Clause. So, free exercise of religion, separation of church and state. Evidently, faith was the first thing on the founders' minds and hearts, the first statement of the nation to be. If only abolishing slavery and or not abolishing the indigenous Native American population had also been a first thing in the first place. But at least, at long last, the football team in our nation's capital, my hometown of Washington, D.C., has rightly amended their name, Commanders, in place of the previous abomination. Better late than never. On June 14, 1775, one whole year before the Constitution, the Continental Congress established the Continental Army. First military job, warrior, infantry, rifleman. July 29, 1775, just a month and a half later, Congress established the job of military chaplain. I suspect some part of those statements' hearts knew all too well that war is hell, and that their country's warriors would need some first-class holy comforters to help nurture their spirits, care for the wounded, and honor the fallen and their families. Fun fact, the first official U.S. military chaplain served in the Revolutionary War died in service, the Reverend William Emerson, Unitarian pastor of Boston's First Church, grandfather of Ralph Waldo Emerson. So, as far as military chaplains go, we UUs were the first thing first. Number 2, second things first. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So says the Constitution's Second Amendment, though there are many second thoughts and strong feelings about this right about now. 2 assignments ago, I was in the Second Amendment, aka constitutional carry state of Texas. So, no license, no permit, no background check or training necessary to carry an open or concealed weapon. No regulations. Were it not for the right of the people to bear high-powered assault rifles, back then 19 children, 3rd and 4th graders, and 2 teachers gunned down at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, which was about 80 miles from my last base, might still be alive to play this Memorial Day. There have been over 400 mass shootings since then, and it's only May of 2025. On the other hand, were it not for the people in the well-regulated militia called the Union Army, bearing arms in the Civil War, my ancestors and I might still be enslaved property. In any case, Congress first established warriors to embody the Second Amendment. Then, secondly, Congress established military chaplains to embody the First Amendment for those warriors. And nearly 250 years later, we military chaplains are still seconding that motion. Number 3, love is a battlefield. Military chaplains are non-combatants, courtesy of the 1864 Geneva Conventions, so we do not carry weapons. We do not so much as touch weapons. So while we embrace our warrior spirits with open arms and are right beside them, stateside, overseas, under fire, in harm's way, and or outside the wire, we do so unarmed. Military chaplaincy is not for the faint of heart. Due respect to Psalm 23, it is one thing to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil when you are carrying a weapon. It's a very different thing to march fearlessly into those shadows bearing only your light. Thankfully, in 1909, Congress saw the light and established the military job of chaplain assistant, warriors who primarily exist to be our sword and shield. In chess terms, they are the knights who ensure that we bishops get to march back safely to our rooks, to the loved ones inside our homes. In total, 419 U.S. military chaplains have been killed in the line of duty. Yet, amazingly, only 2 have been killed in action since 1970. And all the harm and danger that we modern-era chaplains never see is largely because our chaplain assistants see it first. Number 4, rank by rank, again we stand. Military chaplains have rank, but not command. We certainly give our share of commands, not that anybody follows them. We just don't ever have command responsibility. Commanders are responsible for everything their unit and every unit member is, has, or does, or fails to do 24/7, 365. No, thank you. In any case, chaplains are commissioned officers, able to rise potentially all the way to the rank of 2-star general or admiral, which is the pay grade of 08. Proud to say that 2 of our UU chaplains, Navy chaplain Cynthia Kane and Air Force chaplain Kalani Kasela, are rising stars who have both made the well-deserved grade of 06 in recent years. Regardless of rank, troops usually call a chaplain, chaplain, which gives you a kind of moral authority, even if you are a lowly 01, which I have been. However, in the way a medic must earn the title doc, chaplain must earn their unit's possessive pronouns. So the moment you are unofficially promoted from the chaplain to my chaplain, feels tirelessly heartwarming every time. So why are chaplains officers? First, because we are one of the commander's trusty personal staff advisors, the subject matter expert on all things religious, spiritual, moral, and/or ethical. Second, our rank affords us the authority and the autonomy to care for the highest and lowest ranking souls and all in between, while also empowering us to advocate for their spiritual needs and religious accommodations. Rank does have its privileges, one of which is a chaplain's power to speak truth to power and privilege when the moment calls for it. We are our commander's conscience, the guardian angel on the right shoulder. One might argue that the judge advocate, the commander's legal advisor, is the devil's advocate, the demon on the left shoulder. Of course, an accusation like that might land a person in some legal trouble, punishable by the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so I would never suggest such a thing. Number 5, Lord, I want to be in that number. The U.S. is roughly 0.6, the U.S. military is roughly 0.6 of 1% of the U.S. population. 330 million-ish citizens, 2 million-ish service members. All 6 armed forces, all 3 components, active duty, reserve, and National Guard, is less than 1%. And yet, just about every age, religion, race, ethnicity, nationality, class, gender, sexual orientation, political affiliation, and socioeconomic status in the country and on planet Earth is represented in that 1%. We embody our country's unofficial first motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Many U.S. troops join long before they are even U.S. citizens and serve with brave-hearted valor, risking their lives to protect rights and freedoms that they don't even technically have yet. Many of them say the worst neighborhood in this country, the U.S., has exponentially more possibility and opportunity than the best neighborhood in their home country. So yes, there's a greater chance they could die here, but there is often a much greater chance they would have died there. A handful of the troops at my last assignment were born and raised in the Ukraine. While they were at basic training, all hell was breaking loose at home. So, in marching into the U.S. military, they were, in a sense, playing the percentages, saying essentially, Lord, I want to be in that number. And so far, so good. Number 6, more love somewhere. For what it's worth, most souls march into the military seeking more financial opportunity, community, identity, life purpose, stability, security, education, and/or citizenship. More ability to love somewhere. Very few join to kill people and break stuff. On the inside, military members surely don't always love the policy, politics, or interests of the state, especially right now, any more than you always agree with the philosophies of the powers that be at your job, but many of you still go to work. We in the military certainly have our share of in-house injustices. While JAG embodies the military's legal justice, chaplains, particularly we few who are UU, embody its social justice. While many of our civilian UU minister counterparts in the 99% are rightly raging against the machine, marching outside in public squares, at rallies and protests, we are raging inside the machine. We are the saints, the bishops, marching in the private square with VIP seats at the power table. Progressive, welcoming, affirming voices who have the ears of queens and kings, commanders, and can advise moves that help the nation avoid its own spiritual checkmate, while also shining love's light inside the impressionable minds and hearts of the youngest pawns, so that they might walk through the valleys of death's shadows and live to tell the tale. And if and when those young soldiers die, we military chaplains have the sacred charge of crafting and delivering their memorial services, speaking to the heart of their life stories and sacrifice, helping their loved ones' hearts march into a bit of peace and comfort. There is no greater part of the job I love than this. Number 7, the few, the proud. The U.S. has about 6,000-ish military chaplains total. How many would you guess are UU? About 20. That's right. That's it. For the whole military. We 20-something UU few know each other very well. We are a beloved community in every way. We range from 20-something to 50-something in age, from 01 to 06 in rank, a fittingly diverse rainbow connection of sexes, genders, races, birthplaces, family pictures, etc. All of us are legit UU. Some of us further identify as UU Christian, UU pagan, some with Jewish roots, others with Buddhist or humanist branches. We are grateful to have UU chaplains in all 6 military branches right now. Only half of us are active duty, the other half are reserve or guard, but each one of us is very rarefied air. For example, for a while, there was only one active duty UU chaplain of color in the entire United States Air Force on active duty. Can you guess who that was? Fun fact, the Army's first ever Buddhist chaplain was Chaplain Thomas Dyer, who is now ordained in the UU tradition and falls in with us. And the first ever Hindu chaplain in the U.S. military, Chaplain Pratim Dharm, also became dual ordained as UU and marched in with our UU military chaplain circle for a while and is now serving UU parishes richly since her retirement from the military. So, as far as military chaplains go, we UUs are still the first things first. And evidently, we are also the first place, second place. Number 8, nuns. The fastest growing religious preference in the U.S. and the U.S. military is none. Not N-U-N, but N-O-N-E, as in no religious preference. Most often, spiritual but not religious. The majority of troops still identify a preference of some sort, Methodist, Buddhist, etc., but the trend is, and has been for years, that more and more hearts are inclined to check the none box. For what it's worth, most U.S. military chaplains are white, cisgender, male, Christian, evangelical, Protestant. And that is always the fastest growing religious preference in the chaplain corps. Also, for what it's worth, most of these chaplains are good people with big hearts who live to love on warriors just as much as we UUs do. And generally speaking, most have love for us, even if they don't particularly love our theology. Generally speaking, we also have love for them, even if we don't particularly love their theology. Truth be told, most troops could care less what a chaplain's theology is. They mostly care about who and how a chaplain is. Ultimately, they just want a chaplain they can trust, someone whose heart lovingly helps them find home spiritually. Because even though the unit members are many, they have only one chaplain. 9, to each his own or her own or their own. Generally speaking, among military chaplains, we of the UU contingent are thought of as the most out of the box. Spoiler alert. The most unorthodox. Not necessarily in a negative way. We are often the most able to work with warriors of all faiths or no faith without judgment or theological prohibitions. And we are typically the least limited in being able to care for service members of all sexual identities and genders without denominational restrictions. Ironically, we are chaplains with no religious preference of our troops. I like to think of us as O-negative chaplains. Universalist donors. Spiritual lifeblood that can be used for and transfused into any type in terms of counseling and pastoral care. Of course, that doesn't mean we're everybody's worship type. When a troop desires a legit Roman Catholic Mass or a Friday evening Shabbat, we call in the cavalry, chaplains from those traditions. On the flip side, when those chaplains have LGBTQ plus troops, transitioning troops, same-sex couples, interfaith couples, nuns, etc., we typically get called in, and we gladly fall in. I'm not saying there aren't some chaplains who are inhospitable and or downright hostile to us from time to time. There are. And there are civilian UUs who are just as inhospitable and or downright hostile to us from time to time. I'm saying most chaplains' hearts are in the right place, and we find ways to work together lovingly to do the most good for the most service members. 10, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. One of the first things I noticed about all the bookcases in the chaplain's lounge area when I arrived was that all the books displayed on those cases were Bibles. I could say all scriptures are welcome in my lounge, but if there is only one displayed, the unspoken message for many will be that one is truly welcome. So I diversified the display accordingly. To be clear, I didn't take away any Bibles. I just added some Qurans, some Bhagavad Gitas, Dhammapadas, Tao Te Chings. That was my First Amendment, saying essentially there is more love somewhere, here. That December, I arrived at my office to see the halls of the first floor hallway decked with Christmas decorations. Nice welcoming slice of home for many students, no doubt, unless you'd arrived there from a home that celebrated Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, or solstice, or Yule. So I diversified the display accordingly. To be clear, I didn't take away any of the Christmasness. I just added a Hanukkah menorah and a Kwanzaa banner. That was my Second Amendment. There is more love somewhere, here. For me, my office is a metaphor for UU military chaplaincy. We embody the UU values of diversity and inclusion in the most diverse population on the globe. And our open-mindedness and open-heartedness is both deeply medicinal and unspeakably impactful. The last thing for you to know is the first thing. Military members are really just like you, and even if you don't support war, you can wrap your hearts around the war fighters. After all, your freedom to disagree with everything the military stands for, as well as your free exercise of religion, freedom to assemble, and freedom of speech is made possible by the First Amendment, which is protected 24/7, 365 by some soldier, sailor, airman, guardian, marine, and/or coastie standing watch, often far away from their home, who is willing to die for you. And some do. Enjoy the holiday tomorrow, however you choose to spend it. I invite you to spend a moment in gratitude for all of America's fallen warriors and their families. Gladness that there are a few UUs in the uniform to help soften those blows. Amen? Please rise as you are able for our closing hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
Please join us in extinguishing our chalice and your home chalices, if you have lit them, with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I know you normally end with song. We're going to end with some words, very much in the spirit of this day, very much in the spirit of the time for all ages, spoken not far from here a couple hundred years ago, after the bloodiest battle probably in U.S. history, gruesome, tens of thousands of casualties. Keynote speaker for this event spoke for 2 hours, and the sitting president at the time got up, spoke for 2 minutes, 270-some words, and that writer wrote back to him later and said, "You caught the essence of what I was trying to say in 2 hours in 2 minutes." But it's from 1863, but could just as well be probably from 2025, just around the corner from here, from November 19th, 1863, by President Abraham Lincoln, Gettysburg Address. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived, so dedicated, and long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be here, dedicated to the unfinished work that those who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That our nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Amen. Blessed be.